Hello everybody and welcome back to FiMFiction Spotlight. This time we're taking a look at some miscellaneous stories. First up we have Chaos and Laughter. This was actually one of the original top 5s that I had when I first started reading fanfiction in general. And it is still very good, just not as good as I initially thought it was. The basic premise of it is that Pinkie Pie becomes a Draconiquus, and you would think things get wacky from there, but actually it's a pretty dark fic. So I would definitely recommend suspending your disbelief a little if you're really tied to the stuff that happens after Season 2, because this is very much a written during or just after Season 2 fic. This is a pre-Discord being redeemed fic. So, fair warning. Next up, The Monster in the Twilight. This is the one that I actually just read very recently, and the basic premise behind it is Twilight got a little crazier than she did in the original timeline. Instead of when she had her big magic burst and got her cutie mark, instead of just that happening, she kept having her big magic burst and kept having it, and it got way worse, and Celestia had no idea how to deal with it, and then Twilight eventually absorbed so much magic that she felt the magic of the sun from Celestia and said, "Oh hey, I want that," subconsciously, and basically nearly dropped the sun on the planet. So Celestia had to banish her to the Everfree, because she couldn't bring herself to kill her. And the entire thing is about basically a brain-damaged, more wild Twilight in the Everfree, and sort of the things that happen between that point and the new future. And because I was confused about it for several chapters, and they don't explain it until nearly halfway through the fic, I will say, Celestia in this fic has been putting off Nightmare Moon returning through sheer willpower for 2 years. So this actually happens 2 years after the season premiere would have happened, which means that Shining Armor and Cadence are married, and a whole bunch of stuff is different, like the Cutie Mark Crusaders are a thing already. So just throwing that out there, because I was very confused for half of the story because it doesn't explain it until halfway through. Just throwing that out there. It is a very, very good fic though, and I would definitely recommend it. Third up on our list, we have The Witch of the Everfree, which is an alternate universe where instead of fleeing through the mirror, Sunset Shimmer fled Canterlot and jumped off a bridge and ended up in the Everfree with Zecora. And it's a really, really good fic. It's in a very similar vein to Monster in the Twilight, but different, very different. And I would suggest both of them. I would suggest reading both of them. They're both very, very, very good stories, but Witch of the Everfree is just that much better. Fourth up, we have Split Second and its sequel, which is currently unfinished and might remain unfinished. I don't know. Please, for the love of God, write the rest of it. It's such a good series. I don't want to spoil a whole lot, and I feel like the more that I say about this, the more that I'm going to spoil. But to just kind of throw a few little tidbits out there, Life and Death are actual characters that you get to meet in this series, and Death is pretty heavily involved in the story. And the basic premise behind it is when Twilight had her big, magic outburst, something happened where time split in 2, or well, technically in 3. In one timeline, Twilight is just Twilight, and she, has her normal magic. But what ends up happening is it splits into 2 other timelines as well, where her magic sort of spins off into 2 different directions. One direction being light magic, the other being dark magic. And so you have these 2 alternate versions of Twilight that, come together to, bridge the gap between universes and, have talks every so often. And it mostly follows the dark Twilight. And her struggles, with, being viewed as evil and, all this other really cool stuff. And it's just a really, really cool... It sounds edgy. I know it sounds edgy, but it kind of isn't. It's actually just, like, really cool and really dark and really, like, the good kind of dark, if that makes any sense. So go ahead and give that a chance. And if the author is watching, please, for the love of God, just finish the sequel. It's been like 2 or 3 years. It's been years. Please, I need my fix. All right. So, next up, we have Past Sins and its many, many sequels. Past Sins, everybody's heard of Past Sins, but for those of you who haven't, for the love of God, read Past Sins, and for those of you who wrote it off because of, I don't know, wow, this looks stupid, no, it's actually genuinely a really good fanfiction. The basic premise behind it is that a cult captures Twilight and tries to use her to revive Nightmare Moon. They almost succeed, but they're interrupted and chased off, and the interrupted spell semi-completes by creating a filly version of Nightmare Moon who has none of the hatred or memories or anything. And Twilight goes back into the Everfree forest to find something that she left behind when she was captured, and she finds her. And that little filly ends up being named Nyx later, if you've ever heard of Nyx. And it's a really, really good story. And a lot of people just kind of write it off for some reason, which is really sad because, honestly, I think it's one of the better stories on FiMFiction. And I love pretty much everything about its sequels, too. First up, you have Trinkets, and Trinkets is, just like an immediate sequel, where it's just like a little short story about, a few things that happen, like, right after the end of Past Sins. Nightmare or Nyx, where Spike, right after Past Sins, has to deal with, the fact that Nyx is also Nightmare Moon. You have First Hours, which is sort of a prequel thing, kind of, that shows the first few hours of Nyx's existence from her perspective, rather than from Twilight's. You have Winter Bells, which is the first actual, full-length sequel, which happens with the Christmas, not the Christmas, the Hearthswarming right after Past Sins. The Road Home, which deals with the library being destroyed by T-Rex and, how they go about dealing with that, as well as an adventure they have along the way, because Discord's distracting them so that the rest of the main 6 can go in and fix up the castle so that Nyx and Twilight have a new place to live. And Glimpses, which is about using the cutie map to view possible alternate timelines that involve Nyx in some way. Although the first chapter isn't quite about that, it's only sort of about that, but it's still a pretty heartwarming chapter. Overall, it's a really, really great series. If nothing else, I would suggest reading Past Sins, and then if you really liked Past Sins, reading First Hours, Nightmare Nyx, Trinkets. If you really want to keep going, go ahead and go through Winter Bells, The Road Home, and Glimpses. Because it is a very good series, and it's really sad that a lot of people have written it off because, Philly Nightmare Moon, oh, so edgy. It's not. It's actually a really good story. So, go ahead, give it a read. It's really, really good. Really just, ow my heart. It's a good story. Go read it. And I do believe that is all that I have to say for this time. If you enjoyed, go ahead and go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment if you have something to mention or say, or if you liked the video or whatever, just go ahead and leave a comment, Maybe, leave a nice, you make such good content, maybe I should give you some money. Oh, what a nice segue. Maybe I should use that to talk about the fact that I have a Ko-fi and a Patreon, link in the description. Ugh, I'm terrible. Also, in the description, you are going to find the link to today's outro music. So go ahead and take a listen to that. See ya!